Well, I can't really get the lighting the way I would like today, but um, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and record this. I guess you could call it like a very special episode of, like used to, uh, the advertisements back in the 80s and would announce the next episode of a show as being a very special episode, which usually meant it dabbled in some topical social issue and did so in kind of a disingenuous and pat, puerile kind of way that was neatly resolved at the end with a bow on top. But yeah, life isn't like that. Even TV's not like that anymore. Um, but yeah, it's special because it's not going to be an episode of a particular show or anything today. But I guess I'd file it under the arbitrary interludes. Those seem to be the most popular videos I do. So I'm going to try to make this one count because more people tend to watch these. It is kind of an announcement for a new show that I've been kind of developing for months on and off. And lately I've decided that I really need to do it. I need to do it to express this stuff, maybe for my own mental health, which is one reason that I started this channel to begin with, or started making original content for it, was that, and then my hands were messed up last year, so it was easier to do this than write or draw. Now my hands are in even worse shape. I'm not wearing my braces right at the moment because they're kind of limiting at times, but I just took some nerve pain medicine and I'm waiting for that to kick in. So rather than bore you all with those woes, yet again, I just want to say that I feel like we all have a voice. It's just a matter of whether we choose to use it or are comfortable using it or feel motivated enough or feel times are tough enough that someone has to step up and, you know, tell the truth. And, I have a lot of flaws and a lot of character defects, I'm sure. But two things I cherish that uh, I, one of which I haven't always practiced perfectly, but in recent years I've tried my best to do so. And when I was young, um, I did a lot, maybe too much, which is truth. When I was young, I if I lied like to my mom, just even like something silly like basic, just because I thought she'd be mad, something small, I would feel guilty for like weeks. Um, then I learned to lie to get out of things like work and save people's feelings and all the little lies we all tell. Uh, but I don't believe in promulgating falsehoods on a wide scale. I don't believe in adding to a false narrative. Um, and when I started writing journalism about films and other things too, at times like comic books and books and music, I tried to get as much facts together as I could, double and triple check. And this was the days before I was on the internet at my house. I used any resource available to me to do that. Um, and I remember when I first compiled all of my then published uh, writings, journalism writings that had actually been published. This is the paper days. And I sent copies to my then best friend. And a couple of weeks went by, and I said, "What did you think about that stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's okay, but you got a few facts wrong, but it's all right." And I'm like, "No, if you hate my opinions, if you hate my style, cool, but I didn't get any facts wrong." And when I do get facts wrong, I will apologize. I will admit it. And if I don't know a fact, as you guys know, if you watched my channel, I'll just say I don't know, I don't remember. And maybe that makes me look ill prepared and poorly researched, but at least I'm being authentic. Authenticity to me is part of truth and genuineness. I don't like disingenuous people with disingenuous commentary, uninformed opinions that are rife with partisan agenda, and it bothers me. Um, and it's not a partisan thing to me at all because I don't belong to any political party. I never have, and I never will. I'm lucky I live in an open primary state, so that has enabled me to be able to occasionally vote for Democrats in primaries, uh, which I'll never do again. Because the last two times I did it, well, I guess anyone that all follows what's going on out there will knows how that turned out. But I'm not going to assume everyone is unhappy with how it turned out, and I'm not going to assume everyone watching this knows what happened or knows what really happened. And I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about what really happened, but I know a lot. I follow this stuff studiously and daily, and I will throw things out at people I know, the few people I socially interact with in real life, like coworkers or my therapists or counselors. And sometimes they'll be kind of surprised by something I'll say, and I'm like, look it up, you know, check it out for yourself, whatever. Facebook is a horrible cesspool of disinformation, and I don't mean the kind that our government calls disinformation and misinformation. To quote the wonderful Jimmy Dore, there are no greater purveyors of misinformation and disinformation than the government, the American government, and the establishment media, both of which are owned by oligarchs and corporatists. So, I guess this is by now you've guessed that my new show is going to be like a socio-political kind of commentary thing. And yeah, that's what it's going to be. So I'm going to throw my hat into the ring because I have been very inspired by a number of YouTube personalities. And I don't even want to say personalities. I mean, but they do have personalities of their own. And I think that's what makes you want to hear what they have to say. But they don't delude you. They encourage you to think for yourself. But they're authentic. Again, they're real people, and they're not the 1%. They're not wealthy. None of the ones I follow are wealthy people. Some are doing better than others. Some are doing fairly well at their, where they're at. Some aren't doing well at all. Some are homeless. Some are living in nice homes that they pay a high mortgage for, but they all have suffered from our horrible healthcare system, especially in the middle of a global pandemic, where if you really open your eyes, you'll realize that the government does not give a fuck about you. And it's a hard truth for people to learn. It's a hard thing to accept, I think. They're not going to save you. They had the biggest chance in the world to save you in 2020 and 2021, and they didn't. They left us to fend for ourselves. It's a disgusting situation. So what's the other cherished principle I have? Freedom. And, when I first started seeing my last therapist that I had for a year, who just recently left, and now I just started a new one yesterday, the jury's, not out on her yet. But I really liked this previous lady, and we had bonded pretty well. And she asked me early on, what are your maybe 4 or 5 top things that you cherish or that are of import to you in the world, and the top 5, and they were all kind of from a list she provided me, and a lot of them didn't apply. Some of the things I do cherish weren't on there, so I was like, well, okay, creativity, intimacy / sexuality, love and connection. There was one other really important one I'm not remembering, and freedom. And so she's like, creativity, love, freedom, and I'm like, yeah, that's that's the gist of it. It's not that simple, but the freedom part is pretty absolute for me. So, like I said, I'm not a First Amendment absolutist. I'm a free speech absolutist. So, I believe that anything should be said. Not should. Let me take that back. There's a lot of things that should not be said. Let's put it that way. And are said in inappropriate settings. Anything can be said that comes to mind, whether you say it out loud to your friends, whether you say it on YouTube or on the news, in the media, whether you say it publicly at a rally, whether you say it in a concert setting to your audience, whether you say it through your art or your writing, whatever, however you disseminate what you're saying, I think it should be free. Now, I think it should be unfettered, by the government, certainly, but also by any corporation. I don't believe this, well, these are private corporations, they can curtail your freedom of speech. No, I don't believe they have that right. I'm strongly against that argument. And now, that doesn't mean that free speech doesn't bear consequence. It does. but you remember, you might not remember, but I'm old enough to remember when the American Civil Liberties Union was actually a force to somewhat be reckoned with. And they would do things like defend Nazi rallies and Klan rallies. Now, nobody in their right mind believed for a minute the ACLU was in favor of Nazism or bigotry. Um, but the basic idea is let them speak, let them hang themselves with their own words, let them damn themselves with their own words. If they hurt somebody physically, they will be punished by the law. Um, if their words incite someone to violence, then that person who committed the violence will be punished by the law. If you can prove a causal effect in a court of law between the speech and that violence, then the person who spoke will be held accountable. It's pretty simple, really, but now it's like become terribly complicated by all these uh, weird partisan divides and disinformation and contradictions and paradoxes, and it's disgusting. I mean, it's pretty simple, you know. I don't know. I mean, people have said some horrible things to me and hurt my feelings. Now, what could I do about that? What if I hit the person? Then I guess if they file an assault claim, and I'm in trouble with the law. If they're harassing me endlessly with their, vile speech, which has happened to me a number of times, I've had to go to the law for that before. Sometimes they've helped, usually they haven't. And I get it. Sometimes maybe it wasn't warranted, but sometimes I kind of wish they'd done something. This is the culture we live in, the society, the world that was built, the American empire that we, the people I'm talking to live in or were born or lived in America who are watching this video. This was what we were born into. This was the structure that we were kind of stuck with, and under that uh, umbrella, uh, the system, it failed, but not because of freedom of speech. They failed because of censorship and repression. Um, and that's the problem. Control processes. And all through our lives, whether it's teachers or employers or your parents or the church, whoever you are beholden to uh, for your survival or whatever. You have a subservient position to. That person controls you if you let them. Now you can rebel against them, you can disavow them, you can eschew them, you can walk away from the church, you can leave your parents, you can quit your job, you can quit school. And at one time or another, I've done all of those things, and man, I've been way happier. I've got to say, I'm not telling anyone to do that, and that's the problem nowadays. If you say something, the belief is the common wisdom or lack of seems to be that if you say something, oh my God, it could influence somebody to do something bad. Because, we're all too stupid to make up our minds for ourselves. None of us have free will or any kind of willpower or self control. We have to be told what to think. So if I tell you, hey, I think you should do so and so, instead of just either doing it on your own volition and taking the consequences or ignoring it or telling me to fuck off or whatever, you're like, that guy needs to be censored. He told that guy what to do, and I don't know. Do any of you see the problem with this? The slippery slope is so fucking slippery. We're, slided off. We've slid off the mountain into the abyss by now, and there are no peaks. We're deep in the valley, and it's time to climb out of it. It's time to embrace some truth and some freedom, and communicate with each other in a sane fashion, and see that we're being pitted against each other by all these controlling forces that I mentioned. And their primary goal, at the end of the day, they like power. In some cases, power. Like with your parents, they like to control. I'm not talking about healthy parents. I'm talking about dysfunctional families. Uh, they're controlling you because they never dealt with their own shit with their parents. Schools are trying to teach you, his story. So, you have to believe this, and that's starting to change and shift. But people are still upset, man. They're like, no, I want my Columbus Day. I don't want this fucking Indigenous Peoples Day. They need to go back to their own country. It's like they're indigenous to America. They're here, you idiot. Um, and people are just freaked out by all this stuff. Um, there's all kinds of levels to this. There's all kinds of angles to this. I would like to explore eventually all of them in depth in this kind of show. I've named the show tentatively, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not going to reveal it yet. And, not that anybody's like dying to find out. I would appreciate if you guys would put a like on this. Please like this. Even if you hate it, just like it. This is what I'm finding. Like, I've been doing some topical kind of videos that a lot of other people are doing, um, like on the Shawscope box set, or Spider-Man review, the Dexter review, Eternals review. And when I do a search, mine don't come up at all. And a lot of it is because I don't get enough views or enough likes. And so I might as well not exist. So no one's going to know if I have anything to say about value or not. Of course, building subscriber base is important, but everything affects this algorithm. These robots are, they're pernicious and they're relentless, and they've been programmed to filter out everything via numbers and potential profit and potential objectionable speech and buzzwords and trigger words, and it's all bullshit. But it's what I've got right now. I tried to get on the Rockfin. I did a whole video about it, and they told me my platform wasn't big enough. I wasn't well known enough, and that was a little hurtful. I realized that Rockfin was not like for everybody, but it basically was for people who had reached a certain plateau of, I guess, success or engagement with their audience on this platform of YouTube, but needed unfettered freedom of speech. And that's what Rockfin promised. There's other avenues like Odyssey and Rumble, and they have their critics and their supporters. Those are other things we could talk about another day. I wouldn't mind building to 1,000 plus subscribers and getting monetized and getting on a platform like Rockfin. I'd love it. That's not a goal that I'm striving, aggressively toward, and that's not something that I'm counting on either or praying for. But I would like it to happen, and I can't just wait around. I've got to at least put out some energy to gain some energy back. That's one of those principles of magic that I have learned from people near and dear to me in the past, who I've probably talked about ad nauseum on this channel. But it's true. It is true. I believe. I believe the will is powerful. I believe a lot of the Crowleyan principles of Aleister Crowley of, love is the law, but love under will. And I think that's important. I think, the law is for all. But yeah, I believe that stuff. I believe that the true will is powerful. And I don't mean like a triumph of the will like Leni Riefenstahl, where you have a clown like Hitler who was an insecure motherfucker and I guess fairly smart, manipulative. But you watch his speeches and even translated or untranslated, I mean, he looks like a buffoon to me. You how these people fall for this. And I know the first thing that's going to enter a lot of people's minds when I say this is, well, look at Trump. So what you have to look at is not so much the atmosphere created by Hitler or created by Trump or created to let them in, like the immediate atmosphere. You have to look at the overall thing. They are symptoms of a problem. Hitler was a symptom of a culture, that was directionless and needed a leader like that. And they fucked up, and the world started yearning for fascism, and then they yearned for freedom. And allegedly everyone was liberated after war and with World War II. But actually what happened is the American Empire came in and took over where all the Axis left off. They did it differently, though, at least within their home country, America, and I'd count Britain too. But, they invaded other countries all over the world, non-European countries. And, Britain had colonized most of the planet. And then when they pulled out, it was horrible. It was horrible. Basically, Britain raped Africa and then pulled out and left Africa, dying in the gutter. I mean, I hate to use such a horrid analogy, but it's true. And, doesn't Britain still control Australia and New Zealand and Canada, essentially, the crown? Fuck that, man. So the good thing about America was it was an example that, hey, we're going to be totally free. But this is the deal. There's two lies to that. First of all, we're still not free because, I mean, we meaning not just the people, but the government, because they're beholden to other governments for resources, governments with insidious agendas like Saudi Arabia and very questionable alliances that they feel they have to do. It's like, well, okay, so you're a hypocrite. You're really not free and independent. You have all this money, all this technology, and all this influence, and yet you still, because of natural resources, because you don't want to use renewable resources or alternative resources. You just want to plunder, rape, and pillage the planet until it's a dried up fucking husk that blows away in the cosmos. And uh, is this ever going to end? Yeah, it probably will end, and it's not going to end well for us, I can tell you. Um, Before it ends, though, like we can try to mitigate the damage as much as possible. And I don't mean by voting for the lesser evil politicians. I don't believe in that theory anymore. I don't espouse it. I actually despise it. I think it's lazy thinking. I think a lot of the things that are holding us back are this lazy form of thinking that we're told that things have to be a certain way. And so we all just go, yeah, we shrug and go along with it because we don't want to be bothered. Because, yes, we all have our own problems and we're struggling. We don't see the causal relation between why we're struggling, between our struggles and the fact that we've allowed this propaganda to infest our brain and dictate our actions. But there is a causal relation. If we would not accept these falsehoods and disinformation, misinformation, outright lies, and control and brainwashing that were given through the media and all the other instruments I mentioned earlier, all the authoritarian sources, whether it's school, religion, the media, the government, the military, the police, all of this is here to curtail your freedom. So American people are not free at all. For a time, there was the illusion of freedom, and we had freedoms to a certain extent, depending on what state we're talking about. But once again, we're kind of where we were in the 30s, where we seem to be yearning for fascism. We seem to be yearning to be enslaved. And this time, the people who supposedly rescued us from that, they've got it all, man. They've got it wrapped up, and they've been working on this for decades and decades. And there's a whole area to explore there. And then, of course, people will be like, that's a conspiracy theory. And actually, it's not. You can look any of this stuff up. You can look up the roots of any of these organizations or institutions, what do you call them, foundations, and trace the money, trace the families, trace the money, looked at the wars and what started them and the resources they were started for, the real reasons they were started, not because of religion, but because of natural resources, fighting over oil and other precious things. And, the fight for water is beginning. This is all insane and depressing. But I want to face it head on rather than hide from it. I just, I'm going to go down fighting, I guess, because what the hell? I've lost myself in art most of my life as a refuge, and my own art, my own story, Flicker Street, became more and more dystopian. And then a year or two ago, I realized, wow, real life is now starting to outpace what I had, had in store for Flicker Street. Flicker Street is heading toward a revolution, a massive worldwide revolution, and a sort of apocalypse of sorts. But man, we might get there before I ever get this thing published, if I ever get it published. But even before I finish writing it, a lot of it's already happening. I'm not saying I'm prophetic. I'm just saying I was influenced by these tides, especially beginning in the 1990s. I started to educate myself. And a lot of the things I was afraid that would happen that informed my actions, which, made a lot of people think I was weird or pissed off at me, they're all happening. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Look at all these post-apocalyptic or cautionary science fiction novels, and especially TV shows, and especially films from that period, and all these things they were warning about, and they're all happening, from the environment to technology to the totalitarian governments taking control. As far as we know, we're not eating people yet, recycled as Soylent Green. but you never know. We could be. I mean, we would not be far fetched at all. I've been hearing some really insane things lately. Um, oh my God, yeah. Follow the chain. Well, even the Soylent Green. Follow the what's that thing he wants to follow? It's basically like the supply chain, and that's how he finds out the truth about Soylent Green for himself. Thorn, the main character. Um, which reminds me, our supply chain is breaking down internationally, and so people are like, "Why aren't there stuff? Why are the shelves empty at my grocery stores?" And again, they're not making a connection between all of they're not connecting the dots, and a lot of this stuff is being underreported or not reported at all by the media. And right now, the mandates and the COVID thing are a wedge issue that is succeeding in tearing people apart. Trump was one thing that did a lot of damage, not because of Trump. To me, Trump was a symptom. Uh, Trump's gone, but people are still complaining about Trump and blaming him for all this. And none of this happening now is his doing. I'm not saying he didn't set certain thing in motion, but at the same time, he inherited a lot of things that were set in motion before him. The things that Obama with Biden, things that the Bush Reagan, cartel put in motion, and even further back than that. There's only one president in my lifetime that I think is a decent person, and that's Jimmy Carter. And even then, he messed up. He did some, questionable things that led to some deregulations. And well, he was for regulations, but he put some things in motion. And then, of course, with neoliberalism, he started making alliances that were questionable, basically because he let that maniac Brzezinski or whatever his name, maybe that's the daughter who's on that terrible Morning Joe show. Her father, I can't pronounce his first name, begins with a Z, Zbigniew. I can't pronounce these names. Brzezinski was he was just like Kissinger. He was this lunatic, and he wanted to reshape the world. And a lot of stuff he set in motion is happening. And again, this has nothing to do with partisanship at all. Look at Obama. I'm progressive. I'm going to save everybody. And then he makes Hillary Clinton, who says that Kissinger was her biggest influence, makes her Secretary of State. So why are you giving foreign relations and matters that affect the whole planet into the hands of maniacs, who have an agenda that doesn't include us, profiting in any way. It's our misery they're profiting off of. This stuff's deep. It's deep and it's heavy, and my opinions on it are constantly evolving. But like I said, the variables that are non-variables to me again are truth and freedom, and I'm going to try to pursue those things. A friend on Facebook asked me a year or two ago, a young woman who's a genderqueer person, and she's like really cool. I met her she's biologically female. I met her at a convention several years ago through my ex-wife, and we're still friends. And she's got very leftist views, which is good. And she was like, "How would you describe yourself?" She said, "I shy from labels, for obvious reasons, being part of the LGBTQ community." She's like, "But if you had to label yourself politically, what would you call yourself?" And I said then I would call myself a far left, nonpartisan progressive. Well, progressive has been tainted, by, it's been tainted by certain people who are in our government. Now, I'm not going to get into all that, but they've used that label as a shield, a way to get a toehold, to make people think that they're going to fight for them, and then they get in there and they don't do a goddamn thing except for themselves and their masters. So I don't really use it. I mean, I believe that my ideals are progressive, as in progress. Progress, it's real simple. Progress for the human race. I believe that neoliberals and neoconservatives are retrogressives. They're progressing in the sense that they're going to keep getting richer and richer and richer and older and older and more powerful, whatever. But they're retrogressive in their minds. They're not free in their minds, and they want to enslave all of us, physically and in our minds. And they may succeed in the physical part, but they don't have to succeed in the mental part, unless they give us like mass lobotomies or something. But don't laugh. No kidding. but the thing is, all of this is it's very disturbing. So I want to do a show where I just kind of talk about this stuff, maybe once a week. I might, have a pivotal topic or news tidbit they'll, uh, start me off and get things going, and then I'll probably go on a million tangents as I always do. But I just want to say, if I were going to start the show today officially, my tangent for today would begin with, my catalyst would be this panic and furor over on social media, to Twitter and Facebook, particularly regarding censorship and the shutting down of a platform of someone with a very wide audience. And contrary to what the neoliberals tell you, it's a very diverse audience. It's not a bunch of crazy, white nationalist, Aryan conservatives, Trump obsessed lunatics. But that's what they want you to believe. And I saw a young lady, I don't know her very well. She's in my film group, and she made this bizarre post today describing just what I said, that these people are just that, Nazis basically, and therefore they need to be deplatformed. And everything she said about this person was completely false and erroneous. And she went on and on and on and on, and then said, "But the quandary is censorship. Is it bad? And what platform do you put them on? And any of the platforms can go bad." And because a musician, basically demanded this person be taken off of a platform. A musician who wrote a song called "Rockin' in the Free World." I guess it's rocking in the enslaved world now, baby. And rocking in the enslaved neoliberal world. But, I don't care what that guy says. I like some of his work a lot, but he's a relic. He's making himself a relic. He wrote "Out of the Blue and Into the Black." How can you make a statement like that, and many he has, and then do this? And then the government gets in on it. And they're like, "Yeah, he's right." The president is like, "Yeah, he's right. We got to shut that guy down." This is not good, people. The fact there's anyone doubting for a minute, like, is this good or bad? No, it's bad. Because they'll come for you eventually if you have a voice. If you choose to exercise your voice, if you say something against the prevalent narrative, the approved narrative, the bigger you get with it, the bigger a target you are, and that's what's happened in this case. Because again, it goes back to what I said earlier. There's this ridiculous received wisdom now that, oh, he said this, and therefore I do something and it hurts and kills me or my family, so he should not talk. But you're the one who went out and hurt yourself and killed your family. A. And B, did he say that? Did he tell you to do that? Or did he just share information that's not shared by the corporate owned media? So if I share with you obscure information, and admittedly, we're talking about medical matters here, and I can't go into it much because I'm on YouTube, and I'll be, I'm too small probably to be shut down now, but I don't want to like shoot myself in the foot before I get started, or like happened to Seth Rich. I don't want to like get shot twice in the back of the head and roll to suicide. Oh my God. And they still never, gave that guy justice. But he did us all a favor. I'll say that. That's again a topic for another day. So I'm against censorship completely. I think some things should be illegal in that it directly harms individuals, like for instance, that aren't really protected under freedom of speech. And I don't mean hate speech. I don't mean like I'm a Nazi, I hate Jews. I don't mean that. I personally think that should be free. I don't agree with it. And the answer, one guy once said, I don't remember his name, a wise dude, said the answer to freedom of speech, the answer to hate speech is not curtailing it speech, but you fight it with more speech. You fight it with positive speech and alternatives. You fight against it. You push back. You don't just shut it down, because then it festers underneath, and it grows and it becomes a lethal force. This is true of all things, human sexuality, any kind of repression. They're going to explode in a bad direction. But if you let people be and do whatever they want to do within reason, there are going to be extremists who hurt other people and take advantage of that freedom. That's the sad thing of human nature. But those people weed themselves out. I mean, and maybe it's good that they're weeded out of the culture. They will do it to themselves. Let them do it. Like legalize all drugs. And then people are like, but everyone will be shooting heroin. It's like, no, everyone won't be shooting heroin. Some people will be shooting heroin because they're like, wow, now I can find out what heroin's like. It's legal and I'll go to prison. And then they're going to find, is it for them or is it not? And the people who overdose, that's on them. And then they're gone. Or you create a health and you create a healthcare system that doesn't treat drug addiction as a criminal matter, but as a social matter, a psychiatric matter, mental health issue, and you get a system that can rehabilitate drug addicts. Oh man, there's so much work to do, and some people have been talking about this stuff for decades. Sometimes I get shocked at how long some of this has been in some form of public discourse, way before the internet, you know, before television. I mean, you look at Huey Long. So, I mean, he was kind of a goofball and conservative in some ways, but a lot of the shit he said was very visionary, and then they killed him. Um, or maybe they didn't. I don't know. All I've got to say is all these people who've been assassinated, who've been truth tellers, they've all been left wingers. You don't see any right wing truth tellers as being assassinated. And you might say, well, there aren't any right wing truth tellers. Well, okay, but I mean, why is it okay to kill all these left wingers? When I say okay, I mean, why is there not a backlash? Why? I mean, I know there were riots when Martin Luther King died, and people freaked out over all these deaths. Now people they're numb to it, and now everything's so visual. With the internet and recording things on your phones, you can catch people doing this shit on camera. But even then, the truth is what the people in power decide it is. History is written by the winners, as they say. Unfortunately, that's true. His story, once again. And so, you've had cops caught on camera murdering people, and they get off. They're like, no, he didn't do it. So what? Our five senses are, what? Genesis P. Orridge, the late great Genesis P. Orridge said, we are trained to ignore the evidence of our senses. And it's true, we are. We're trained to go, that didn't happen. Don't show me that, or that's an air balloon. That's not a UFO, or that's a trick of the light, and no, a cop didn't shoot that guy in the face. The guy deserved it. He was black. He was criminal. He did drugs. So, George Floyd was a big rallying cry to stop all that. And I think it did some good, the fact that the guy went to prison. But ultimately, he was a sacrificial lamb. Now, don't get me wrong. In my mind, he deserved to be executed. I'm not against the death penalty. I'm not for it. I don't think it's a good thing. But, come on. There's some people that don't need to be in society. There's some sociopaths who can never be reformed. And the things they do reap such bad karma. Well, a lot of times reaping bad karma is the punishment. So then you get an argument, well, is it just to give the victim's family satisfaction, like retribution, revenge? I don't have any answers to any of that. I have opinions that change depending, I know it's case to case with me. In general, I think the death penalty is okay in certain cases. But again, that's the state taking their life. I mean, what the hell? I mean, in a free society or a true open society, who knows what would happen? Maybe the victims' families would kill the guy. And then the victims' families would have to go to jail. But, at least they feel better and the guy's out of the way. I'm kidding. This sounds like the plot of Lady Vengeance by the great Park Chan-wook. That's a profound movie. You should check it out. I haven't reviewed it yet formally. The Vengeance trilogy is very great, thought-provoking. I have done a whole show on Old Boy. I don't think it was a very good episode. I don't think I did justice to Old Boy, but, I put it out there. And that's all I'm doing here. So this is the announcement. My arbitrary interlude for today is anti-censorship. The hubbub going on today is ridiculous. And I'm sure if I voice any opinion remotely like this, 50 or 100 people on Facebook will unfriend me, block me, cuss me out, torment me, harass me. And most of them, if not all of them, will be so-called liberals and artists. And it's sad because they have become the creatures that they allegedly were fighting and rebelling against when they became artists. Sorry, man. You're not what you claim to be. You either stand for something or you die for nothing. So, yeah, wow. Okay, so I regurgitated a lot of cliches that much more intelligent people than me came up with a long time ago. Um, I'll try to extrapolate and synthesize some more, original aphorisms in future episodes. Whenever I come with a really good aphorism, I put it on Facebook. A couple I shared with my last therapist, and she loved it. One I shared was, this is mine, a copyright. It's mine, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, it is mine. I said, a guy says to you, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. And my retort is, don't mistake your cynicism for strength, because it ain't. So that's just a sample. I'm not like Alejandro Jodorowsky yet. I'm not, spewing aphorisms like mad. My ex-fiance is really good at aphorisms, not consistently good. But when she's good, she's great. Um, I'm working on it. They're just spontaneous to me. It's all like automatic writing. I'm processing the world around me and it's coming out, whether it's in social media posts or in my story or, in music that people aren't hearing right at the moment, or me talking in these videos. So I'm using my voice until I am silenced. Um, I don't know what'll happen. I'm just going to see. I'm just going to test the waters. I'm not going to try to be deliberately a provocateur, but I'm not going to sugarcoat this kind of stuff either. I want to share information that I have received that has been verified to the best of my knowledge and my five senses and my intellect. I'm not stupid, and I want more of you guys to wake up. I'm sure you are. I'm not saying you're not, but just in case you're not, I found out recently. A really close friend of mine was just definitely not awake. I may never be awake, and hell, my ex fiance, one reason she split up with me, she thought I wasn't awake about these things. The difference between she and I is she's awake about these things to the point where she's wants to stay off the grid, whereas I wanted to survive, have food, a home, a family. Well, she wanted a child. I was like, cool, let's have a child. Structure, infrastructure, and then we can create and put these things out into the world. But we must guard ourselves first, our shelter ourselves, our family, our pets, each other. So that's where we're totally different philosophically now, and it's her loss. It truly is profoundly her loss. However, the art she produces as a consequence of her seclusion will be to the world's benefit. So I'll give her that. So I'm going to take off. I'm over long. Peace to everyone. Sometime I'll announce or just go ahead and jump in with the first episode of this show. And I'm going to, make an outline of things to cover. I'm still going to do this all off the cuff. This is all off the cuff. But I have made outlines of like topics I want to cover, broad ones. And then like today, the thing with the censorship kerfuffle, it's insanity. But I've stated without blatantly naming names and without getting in trouble with YouTube algorithms over medical commentary. I've stated my side here. I don't know if I will state it on Facebook. I'm not in the mood for all the hate. Um, because these people are hating the wrong people. They shouldn't be hating their neighbor. They should be hating the powers that put us all in this fucking mess and have abandoned us time and time again. We're on our own. All we have is each other. So if we destroy each other, it's over, man. It's done. So think about it. Rock on.